Well, I thought I'd do a Fresh Starts Farm equipment video. We got the Guard Hound. This is a 2022 model. Yep. Got a 2005 Ford Ranger that's in theft mode. I did not steal it. Anyone knows how to get it out? I've been trying different things. Doesn't want to do it. But yeah, maybe you'd be more interested in my interseeder, which is actually just a Case 5100 grain drill. I put some wheel spacers from a company that makes them for skid steers. Get it out between just barely straddling the rows. Maybe I should get one more set. Because occasionally, this is a this covers 4 rows, and I have a 6-row planter, so I end up running over more stuff than I would if I had, a 15-footer, but they don't seem to make this style in 15-foot, at least that I've seen. Yeah, I really like this style because you're carrying some of the weight on these tires that you can space in between the rows, and these row units it's a 6-inch spacing, which I really like. Get much quicker canopy closure of your cover crop, which is really important for keeping weeds down. Yeah, I tried to get a 3-point model that was a 15-footer that I could not have to worry about having rows going over. The problem with this is you have a lot more row units that end up going over the corn. Very rarely do the double disc openers hit it right on, but the packing wheels definitely do. The nice thing about 5100 is you can just put as much down pressure as you need, so you don't have the packing wheels just smashed into the ground. So, but yeah, the having to have the guest row in the middle of this sometimes means the row units get off a little bit. Still kind of works just fine. It would work better if I had one the same width as my planter, so hence why I tried this thing, but so many things that don't work. Obviously I was going for a 3-point mode because these caddies are crap, but this thing is just, I don't know, in my mind, absolute junk for interseeding. First off, this thing, the drive wheels and then the other kind of support wheel controls how deep the row units go, and you kind of like pitch it back and forth a little bit. You don't have it necessarily level. And then it has when it's in the ground, it's the 2 wheels, and then all the rest of the weight's on these freaking packer wheels, which they're massive too, so you just absolutely squash corn if you're not right on the money driving. And with duals, this thing, you'd have to adjust it a whole bunch and have it running over corn unless you changed it so it was like way out there. And then my tractor, I love it. It's a Alice 7030. I was just gonna use that as the interseeder tractor this year, but it's just just too big with the duals to, and kind of the feel of the John Deere open station smaller tractor is just completely different. You feel so much more, I mean, you can drive so much more precisely with that, or I can, than the big Alice Chalmers. So even though in theory the row units would run over less, it doesn't work out that way. Plus, with just using a regular grain drill, you have to drive off center just a tiny bit. So you have to have tires narrow enough that you can do that, and you have to be precise enough. So, long story short, this thing really did not fit the bill. In a number of ways, it's also 7.5 inch spacing, and when you see that after using a 6-inch spacing, it's like not even worth it, even if it worked perfectly and you know, you could do a 6-row instead of a 4-row. It's so much more worth it to have 6-inch spacing. The other reason for the 6-inch spacing is this is the last tool that I take through my field in terms of weed control, and it's pretty early in the season. So what grain drills do, a lot of people discount this, is they are also a tillage device. So what I like about having the hydraulic downforce is you can really fine tune it so that you are penetrating into the ground just as much as you want. You're getting the seed to moisture. You want all of that for even germination. And you're also creating, you know, little hills and some tillage. 6-inch spacing, there's more tillage. And it, you know, that helps, as this is the last, you know, thing that goes through my field until, you know, harvest, unless it's inter-row crimper or maybe a drone spraying some fertilizer on. So yeah, having a lot more disturbance closer together helps a lot. Really like that aspect. 6-inch spacing's great. I just wish there was a 15-foot model. 3-point type deal would, but, well, then I couldn't use it. So, you can be surprisingly precise with a pull behind, going in straight lines, and, you know, the thing about these is, even if I am running over corn, which I do quite a bit, you know, and you going on turns and don't drive exactly correct, it just, you don't kill the corn. May hurt it just a little bit, but yeah, these packer wheels, if you can control the amount of down pressure going on them, and you're not putting an overly large amount of down pressure, just a little bit to maybe press seed in, really, corn's V2, it bounces back, it's fine. And I'm thinking of replacing all of these with the old packer wheels from my planter. The closing wheels off my planter. I use spiky ones. So something even thinner that miss more corn plants. Just the hydraulic. This style of drill works really well. There's lots of other styles that really don't work. Obviously, the other thing that would work is, you know, a custom made 3-point bar type of thing with row units. I think, you know, there's interseeding, I think it's Yetter, or I don't remember, Dawn maybe it's Dawn. You can make a really sweet interseeding rig, but this is way cheaper. Works pretty damn well. Yeah, what else? Yeah. I mean, having the control over downforce is so critical for getting... if you want this worked well, you want really even emergence of your cover crop. So getting it to moisture, but not being too destructive is the key with using a grain drill and just drilling over the top of everything. Anyways, I guess we'll move on for that. It's probably enough information. And then here's my Inter-crimper. It's very homemade, well, these 3 rope units are very well made. The last 2, which I was a part of, not so much, but not heavy duty, as you can tell. Just use lots of junkyard parts. Pretty self-explanatory. Old cultivator bar. You don't need a whole lot of weight to crimp buckwheat. Stuff that's, super leggy and elongated because it's trying to grow with buckwheat. Doesn't need to be super heavy duty. This will suppress mustard and not kill it, which I like. But you could kill the mustard just by adding a little bit more weight. Not really that much. So might add some water tanks. But yeah, and then obviously the tractor tires count for 2 units, units. Yeah, I mean, works pretty good. The tires don't grip quite as much as the others, but I mean, you don't have to do a perfect job, which is kind of the neat thing about it. If you don't crimp every last mustard or buckwheat, it's not the end of the world whatsoever. So that cost me, less than $1,500 to build that. So not a whole lot of cost entry to this. There's also grants from NRCS, which are now, I guess, indefinite, which is awesome for getting reimbursements for planting cover crop. So if you want to dip your toes into this stuff, you can. Just, grain drill, homemade crimper, and, I think that's exactly what the U.S. government should be assisting farmers with, is buying cover crop seed and using it effectively. Oh, let's not get into that, I guess. But yeah, here's the mill. A little bit messy right now. I make, certified organic grain, if you didn't know. Or certified organic feed out of certified organic grain. Probably going to upgrade my mill. Make this the backup here if anyone's got a nice, sweet deal for me. And, yes, one of the greatest tractors ever built right here. Say it's probably just as good as almost as good as the John Deere 8000 series, but 1/10 the price. Also a good deal, and just loyal workhorses. Love the old Alice Chalmers. So this is my planting tractor that I dualed up to use as well, more effective planter, but also and I love it for planting. The dual is just the spring was needed that big times. But yeah, just in the twin rows, you got 22-inch gaps you're working with. And I didn't get skinny enough tires, but it's okay because it's just not nearly as good as that little John Deere for running a cultivator and or interseeding is primary. Hopefully, never again using a cultivator. But speaking of weed control tillage tools, I have a high-speed disc. It's a quick till. I really like it. This is kind of like, I guess what I'd say is necessary evil. An organic farm is you gotta kill weeds, and because they're there when you go to plant, or there's a cover crop when you go to plant otherwise. So after you do this and you plant and you do a little weed prevention and plant my cover crop, then I'm good to go. I use a disc, and the primary reason I use a high-speed disc is to bury residue, corn stalks and sunflower stalks, so we don't have a whole lot of decomposition days here in East Central Minnesota. And I need to bury those to use a tine weeder. So after I plant, this is one of the first things I'll do. There's 2 weeks in between planting and V2 on corn and V1 on soybeans or V2 on soybeans. So basically you got to keep it weed free. You can run a tine weeder if you don't have a whole lot of trash on the old plant residue from last year's crop. So that's most of the reason I use a disc rather than something maybe a little shallower like a field cultivator, or just running the disc shallower. I have to run it at least 4.5, 5 inches deep to bury the residue. Just a lot of pulverizing of the soil, but my plan is to only do 1 disc pass right before planting this next year. I would like to find a what they call a blind cultivation tool like this tine weeder. This rotary hoe you can run it in residue, so you could do some shallow spring tillage. Hopefully you know what a rotary hoe is because it's covered in weeds. But this you can run through residue. It's just got these starry tine wheel things. But it doesn't do as good a job as a tine weeder. So I'm actually I'll let you guys know, but I'm kind of thinking of designing something myself. We'll see. It's kind of more rotation, but not rotary hoe. Yeah. That would be ideal if I could just do a shallower tillage in the spring. But if you have good soil structure, your soil can survive pretty intense tillage pass just fine. Your aggregation gets broken down a bit, but as long as you don't do that 2 more times in quick succession and you plant cover crops, you get a complete full use of your photosynthetic potential for a good chunk of summer. It's going to come back and it's going to be better than before, even though you did tillage, which some people think's the end of the world, but they use lots of other damaging things and don't use cover crops. Anyways, this is my other tillage tool. This thing's called a Cursebuster, and it's minimally invasive, but it does some really awesome decompaction. This thing's awesome. There's no drawback to this. You can get bust out compaction layers without doing a bunch of flipping of the soil, mixing, destruction of your soil structure and organic matter. The whole no-till thing movement is really just been a whole lot of dogma for a long time. If you have compaction in your field, you have to address it, and this is the best way to do it without setting yourself backwards. Cover crops are amazing, but they're much more amazing if you give them an ideal environment for their roots. It's kind of like a compounding effect where plants are much more effective if you give them an environment where they're healthy. So this thing's super useful for that. It's the only thing I'd ever run in the fall. Usually, though, I don't have stuff off early enough to do fall tillage, but yeah, I run this before the disc and I run it after planting, which might sound crazy, but yeah, that creates a really fluffy soil, and then kind of a compaction layer, and then the soil it doesn't touch is much more dense. So if you plant your crop into that kind of environment, which a lot of guys do, unfortunately, you're gonna have a really shallow root system that just stays on the surface and has a really hard time getting down past that layer. So this is very effective mitigating that. Cursebuster. I think I've probably jabbered almost enough. I'll can show you my cultivator if you like. The idea is not to use it though. You gotta plow. Sometimes you need a plow. But yeah, part of the reason for getting the duals on the Alice was because the John Deere is too small to run this cultivator. You can if you turn it into 4-row, but once again I have 6-row planter, so it doesn't really work. So the John Deere can pull this 6-row cultivator though. So it's just I changed it to a 3-shank Danish tine setup. Sweeps are like 7-8 inches wide, I think. But yeah, for twin row, this doesn't get in between the twin rows. Just does the 22-inch gap. So twin rows, a big old bet. It works really good for the system of using cover crops and canopy closure to control weeds and get good plant spacing, which is a big boost, I think, for yield potential. It's really good plant spacing, but yeah, it's a big gamble because you don't have can't, unless I custom made a cultivator, maybe you could run something between the 8-inch gap, but that'd be pretty hard. So yeah, here's my planter. Twin row, obviously. I just really love this thing. The liquid in-furrow is just such an amazing feature to have. If you're doing biological, compost tea type stuff, you can just throw a lot of goodies in the tank. And yeah, 6-row twin row. And basically that's just for spraying molasses and biologicals on residue in the fall, but most years it's too cold. And a beautiful swather I never use because I don't grow oats anymore. Yeah. But, maybe one day I'll want to get back into it, and then I'll never be able to find a beautiful swather, so I'm keeping it. You can't have it. Alright, phone's about to die. Goodbye.